The Heroes and the Hidden by Kitty Quat on AO3. Episode 46. Chapter 40. Run, Little Girl, Faster. Toga grinned, watching the detective walk away from the vigilante's place. She had been following the vigilante herself for months, waiting until he left his victims tied and helpless, before pouncing on them, driving her fangs deep into their necks. Blood was so good, so tasty. It was warm down her throat and filled up the gnawing pain that tore at her. She vomited it all up the next day, but she just drank more, never satisfying her hunger. Birds and rats didn't satisfy her anymore. She needed the blood. She needed to shift. She was an old lady right now. Granny, Shawly, and all. The actual grandma was lying in a dumpster in an alley, too old to escape. She had called Toga gross. Her hair might be matted and her clothes disgusting, but she was cute, and everyone should call her cute. She followed the frantic detective from the slums of the train station, careful to keep herself hidden. No one suspected an old grandma, but she couldn't be too sure that he wouldn't turn on her. She wanted one thing from this: his blood. With his blood, she could get into anywhere she wanted. She could get access to the hospital's supply of blood, finally filling the pain in her stomach. She could be whoever she wanted, and they wouldn't find her. But what she really wanted was to see her friends. She couldn't recall their faces anymore, too blurred with red in her mind, but she knew the detective was close to them. He would be able to get close to them. She knew what their blood would taste like. Delicious. As the announcement sounded for the next district, the detective hurried out of the car's train, still frantically typing on his little phone. She followed him out, grabbing a small Ziploc she had on her, and slid into the bathroom. She bit into the bag, letting the warm copper taste rush over her tongue. She didn't like AB blood that much, but it was all she could get her hands on. The young woman she now turned into had been some reporter or something. She had wandered to watch a villain fight, and Toga had stabbed her and drawn her blood as she was too preoccupied to even notice the young girl. She stripped off the granny clothes, walking confidently in her new heels towards the detective. She needed to get him alone, get him where she could suck his blood. She might want to be smart to bag some just in case she needed it later. She needed all of his blood. He didn't need it. Not like she did. She placed a grin on, stepping in front of the detective. He paused, putting down his phone to look at her. "Do you think you could help me find my phone?" she says cheerily, as the detective frowns. "You're an officer, right? Should I call a hero instead?" The man's face frowns as he shakes his head. "I can help you, ma'am. Where did you last see it?" he asks, tucking the phone into his pocket. She grins, leading him down to a small alley system. Not so vacant that it raises alarms, but vacant enough that everybody knew not to ask questions. She slipped his phone out of his pocket, placing it into her own. She had to stop herself from drooling at the thought of his blood as she drew the knife from her sleeve. "Oh," she says, bending down slightly. "I think I see it under there." She points to something under the dumpster. He takes the bait and leans down. She grins, practically tasting the blood on her lips now, stabbing the knife down as hard as she can. She could taste victory. She will have her friend's blood soon. She loved them so much she wanted to be them. Hitoshi shook Izuku awake, placing a finger to his lips. Midnight may have been determined for them to stay at Eraserhead's together. She said something about a mission, but Hitoshi was simply happy to be able to snuggle to Izuku. petting his hair when he had another nightmare. Izuku always was calmer in his arms, and if that's what he needed to do to protect his friend, he would. He would destroy the world for Izuku and Toga if it ever came to that. What's going on? Izuku asked quietly, sitting up for the bed. His messy hair made Hitoshi force down a laugh as he pointed to the door and creeped over. It had been silent all morning. Too silent. Unusually, they would have been woken up for school already. The clock reading 10:30 on the nightstand. It was peculiar, and Hitoshi didn't like peculiar. He needed to know what was happening. Izuku frowned at the shed door, turning the handle gently. They have left the door open on purpose when they went to bed the previous night. It was less similar to closed doors at night at the group home, locking them in. He propped the door open, scanning the area. Hitoshi stood on his toes, watching over Izuku's head. There was nothing out there. It was pure silence and darkness, the only light coming from cracked curtains. He grabbed Izuku gently, spinning him around and putting him on the floor. Izuku frowned and punched his shoulder as he walked out first, staying in the fighting stance as he learned at UA. Nothing would happen in this house if he would have a say in it. He walked through the entire apartment, frowning when he saw nothing. No people, and no sign of anyone being around. Eraserhead and Present Mike's bed was disarray, as if they had woken up in a rush, and their shoes were gone from the door. They left, he says quickly, grabbing Izuku's hands tightly. Izuku winced slightly, staring at the missing shoes. Did they leave us? He asked, running his thumbs along Hitoshi's hand. Hitoshi simply shrugged, double-checking the locks on all doors and windows. He drew the curtains in the adults' room and turned off any sign of light. He followed Izuku to the couch, watching the door permanently. The heroes wouldn't leave them all alone, would they? It had been an hour since they woke up, and Hitoshi was starting to fall asleep on the chair, so Izuku took over watching, letting him sleep as he could. When the door handle rattled, it was Izuku who stood up, standing between the door and the couch, where Hitoshi snored softly. He breathed out slowly, pushing the slightly buzz that he always had in his head. He could feel his talons coming out slowly, slicing through his nails and skin. He had been practicing using them in secret, trying not to flinch at just the sight of them. It hurt him to use, and the buzz grew deafeningly loud, but he could push through it. He couldn't protect Hitoshi without a quirk, and he wanted to protect Hitoshi. The door cracked open slowly as Izuku shifted into a fighting stance that King Orca had taught him, making sure to adjust his feet correctly. The stance was sloppy. King Orca's position needed a much larger body to correctly work, but it gave Izuku more than he had before. As he held his hands up to the side of him, he would protect Hitoshi. Present Mike entered backwards, making a hushing noise as he carried a large box into the living room. Izuku frowned, standing up and tiptoeing his head to the side as he watched the hero awkwardly move to the counter. Eraserhead stared at Izuku's sighting as he rubbed at his neck, holding a stack of boxes. They're awake, Hizashi, Eraserhead said softly, smiling at Izuku, before looking at his hands. He lifted his eyebrow in a silent question, and Izuku froze up. He tried to pull the buzzing back, imagining a chain wrapping around it, but it just grew louder and louder as he failed to control it. He whined silently into the buzzing quiet entirely. He opened his eyes to see Eraserhead nodding at him, his hair falling back around his shoulders slowly. Midnight stepped into the room next, struggling to get a red wagon filled with boxes over the threshold of the apartment. He ran forward, walking on the side of it, before pushing the back of it. Thank you, Izuku, she said, ruffling his hair. Eraserhead nudges Hitoshi slightly, who leaps up and throws a tight fist punch. Eraserhead dodges easily, smiling proudly. Did you sleep okay, Hitoshi? He asks as Present Mike and Midnight start moving boxes from the wagon to the dining table. Hitoshi blows up, jumping onto the couch to glare at Eraserhead on the same level. "You left us all alone!" he screams. Eraserhead frowns, shaking his head. "I've been just outside the door the entire time, kids," he said, taking Hitoshi by the armpits and setting him on the floor before he sat on the couch. "We would never leave you." Hitoshi fumes as Izuku runs over, giving Hitoshi a tight hug. "I told you," he said with a grin. He trusted the heroes. They were good ones. Hitoshi grumbles something before looking around at the boxes everywhere. "What's happening? Where have you guys been?" he asks, gesturing to all the adults. Midnight grins, looking at Present Mike, who shrugs. "Too late anyways," he says, unboxing a set of board games. "Happy birthday, boys!" she called, grabbing the party hats from inside a box and placing them on each of the boys' hairs. They stare at each other before smiling slightly. Neither had even remembered that their birthdays were this week. Hitoshi and Izuku blew out the candles, grinning at each other stupidly. Ida, Dinky, May, and even Shouta were all smiling at them, clapping and grabbing for presents to open. The pro heroes and UA teachers also stood around, looking at each other with knowing smiles. They opened presents together and squished onto one armchair as Hitoshi pulled out the gifts. Izuku carefully placed each card beside him to read in the safety of their rooms later. Neither of them had ever gotten so many presents, and it was a little overwhelming to thank each person and admire all they have gotten. They didn't deserve all of this. Dinky and Elytra got them each basic phones, with the other's number, so they could call and text when they weren't together. Ida had gotten them a set of Hot Wheel cars and tracks so that they could play with them in Hitoshi's room. May had created a gadget for each of them, with supervised help from Power Loader, of course. Izuku worked as a long-range baton weapon, extending with the touch of a button on the side. Hitoshi was almost an exact replica of Aizawa's capture weapon, but it wrapped around his arms instead, sensing each tense muscle. Shouta had gotten them a set of massive stuffed animals he had seen in one store. He told Izuku with a grin that his dad's credit card was suddenly short some money that night. Nezu had gotten them each a safety tool, complete with a knife and taser attachment. Midnight and Eraserhead snatched them immediately, claiming they could have them when they truly started at UA. Gainorka had gotten them books that he thought kids liked. Hitoshi didn't like reading much, and Izuku was far ahead of the small chapter books he had bought. But it was the thought that mattered. Cementos had gotten them a city building set that was ridiculously large and would probably take over the entire floor of Hitoshi's room. Snipe got them each a gun that shot little marbles at each other. Present Mike had handed them right back and asked for an exchange for Nerf guns. Ladkeen had gotten them warm winter clothes that hung strangely on both of their bodies, not the right size. They loved them. Eraserhead offered a present from Tsukauchi, but Izuku simply set it under the table, refusing to even open it. That got some strange looks from the heroes in the room. Present Mike had gotten Hitoshi a set of knee-length skirts and ruffled dresses, making Hitoshi frown. Gasping, he quickly fixed his mistake by giving Izuku the same skirts and giving Hitoshi a box of suits and actual boys' clothes that fit him properly. Midnight had gotten them matching sets of pajamas and casual clothes, stating how adorable they would be in them. Eraserhead claimed he hadn't gotten them anything before pulling out a small gray and white kitten from a box in the middle. The boys fawned over the kitten, deciding to name it Slinky Milinky, with many laughs from the people around. Both of the boys had the same idea and gifted each other knives they had found laying around at the park and in alleys. Izuku had never felt happier during his birthday. The only thing that could have made this better is if his mom and Toga were with him. But he had friends around them and people who cared about them. He couldn't wish for anything more. It is currently 12:32 a.m. What is up with me and recording super fucking late? I actually don't know. I just do. It is what it is. I don't have much to say here, other than this was a really sweet chapter towards the end. Obviously, the beginning wasn't as sweet, I guess. It kind of sounds like she's gonna pounce and eat them. That's not. Yeah. Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.